Welcome to Basic Alt Text for Brightspace. And we're getting started this morning. This is just quick intro to some of the pieces that you need to consider when adding images to your Brightspace class. This is a joint project between the Studio for Teaching and Learning and the Patrick Power Library Copyright Office. I hope that's the correct description. I would like to start by acknowledging that we are located in Mi'kma'ki and that this is the unceded and territorial homeland of the Mi'kmaq and Maliseet, and they entered into the treaties for peace and friendship that were first signed in 1726. And they were designed to establish rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between two nations. Alternative text or alt text is designed to provide an alternative to non-text content. Alt text is used by screen readers so that content and function of an image is accessible to those with visual or certain cognitive disabilities in place of images when the files are not being downloaded or if internet connection not allow for downloading. Alternative text can be presented in two ways. It can be in the alt text attribute of an image, or it can be in the content surrounding the image itself. Context is everything. Alt text for an image may change based on the context. So you have to ask yourself, does the image have a function? Is it a link or a button? Have you added the image to inform the user? Is it a decorative image? Is it an image that's complex? Is the image part of a group? So if it has a function, it's really important to say that it is a link to or what the function is. If it is to inform the user, it needs to be very descriptive about what you are trying to portray. If it is decorative, you do not need to provide an alt text description. You can just click the box that says it's decorative. If the image is complex, it is probably better to describe the content in the surrounding text. Or if the image is part of a group of images, then you want to group those images and just have one description for all the images rather than each individual one being provide alt text. Alt text should be succinct. It should be 150 characters or less. It should communicate the content and function of the image, which we just discussed. It should take into account the surrounding context of the image. It should not include the words image of or graphic of because a screen reader actually reads in those pieces, and it should not be a file name. So when we are putting in an image in Brightspace, there's a little reminder for anyone that's uploading an image that says that we need to meet Canadian copyright law. And if you're unsure, to ask the Copyright Office. So we thought we would ask the Copyright Office of the Patrick Power Library, Amy and Patricia, to join us and give us just a little bit of info of what we should be considering.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I'm going to talk about the big picture a little bit, and then I'll hand it over to Patricia, who's really going to kind of have some tips and tricks for you. So the big thing I want to kind of point out is that the Copyright Modernization Act in 2012 really changed the Copyright Act for the better and worse in some instances. And one of the areas was that it reverted rights to photographers. So it gave the same rights to photographers. So photographs that may have once been in the public domain now are connected to the photographer as the creator and kind of follow that 50 plus death of the author rule. And so this creates a bit of complexity when dealing with looking for images. And one of the most notable things, and I'll talk about it briefly below, is that you may have a 3,000-year-old work of art that you found a photograph on Google. It's the photographer that owns the copyright. It's not the work. It's the photograph of the work that's in the copyright. So it's something to think about, and there's ways around it. Patricia will show you. The Copyright Modernization Act included more opportunities for educators to use copyrighted works, so there's a little bit more of education factors included in it. And there wasn't really much to deal with technology in the Copyright Act up until 2012, so no one knew what to do with internet works or works created digitally, or really how to handle photographs. And one point I do want to indicate is that educational exception is not equal to being able to use infringed images. Even though the educational exception does kind of have some protection, especially linked to academic freedom in some ways, those images still need to be vetted properly and cited and acknowledged properly. And and my next point there with galleries, museums, and are really opening up their collections to fine art and artifacts. So here you're going to be able to find a lot of those works you might Google and look for, and you might be able to just access that image there. I think part of it kind of goes into them opening that up is that people who are taking those photos in those museums, they own the copyright of the photo, so they can make it commercial. And so I think this is a way that they're able to kind of combat that. And there's lots of an increasing amount of open images for all uses. It's really a good movement. And Patricia's gonna, I'll hand it over to Patricia in a moment, and she's going to be able to discuss the outline and best practices. And we created a little one pager for you as well, in order to um, kind of go with a little bit of the walkthrough and some things to consider when you're wanting to use images in your courses. Patricia, over to you. Next
Great.
slide.
Thanks, Amy. So as Amy said, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of our best practices for choosing and using images. There's a lot of content out there, so sometimes we'd like to give some ideas on how we can use the images and how we can share them quite easily without having too much stress on us. So my first hint is to choose images from reputable image and graphic sites. And that's basically because we want to make sure that we're not accidentally infringing by using someone's image if they don't know it exists on that particular site. And I've got a little side note here. Be very careful about images you find on social media. And that's for a couple of reasons. The first one is that images on social media are often hard to track. We don't know where the original site is. We don't know who the original creator is if it hasn't been attributed properly. It's possible the person who shared it doesn't know who owns the image. And then we can get into issues about secondary infringement. And while that's not a common charge, it has been levied against people in the past. So we always want to make sure we're doing our due diligence and we know where the pictures are coming from. Another thing about social media is if you read the terms and conditions of some social media sites, you will quickly find out that anything you share actually can become owned by the social media site, or they can have a say in how the images are controlled and used. So we want to be careful to not violate contract terms as well, and to share those things off of social media. My second hint or tip is to prefer public domain or the Creative Commons licensed images. So the public domain, as Amy said, is anything that's been kind of 50 years past the death of the author or the creator. That is going to change with the new trade laws coming in, and we're going to be looking at a longer term. We don't know what that's going to look like quite yet. But anything that is clearly in the public domain is available to use. You don't have to give attribution usually even, although it is good academic practice, and you can make use of it in different ways. Creative Commons is a licensing scheme, which some people might be familiar with. And that's when the creator or copyright holder can actually apply a pre-existing license that'll tell you what you can do with that image or product. And this can vary from, I don't care what you do as long as you give me attribution and you say who I am, to I don't want you using this commercially. And there's the different licenses kind of spell that out. And it's nice because then you don't have to guess if your work is going to conflict with what the creator wants. Always read the terms and conditions on both the site and the image that you're using. Usually if you go into terms of use or terms and conditions, user rules, you're going to see things that say all of the information on this site is copyright protected, you can't share it, you can't do this, or they might say you can share it, you can do that. So we do like to follow that because a terms and conditions document is considered a legal contract. And legal contracts have been kind of a big topic of discussion, but there's proof or evidence that the courts will prefer a legal contract over a copyright exception. So copyright exception won't always trump a legal contract. It's always important to look at the image on the site. This is especially true with newspaper sites or magazine sites. A lot of these publishers are actually licensing the image themselves from a third party. So while there might be a nice picture of a government official on the Chronicle Herald's website, it's very possible the Chronicle Herald doesn't have any rights to the image and they've licensed it. And if you want to use it, you're going to have to license it from the copyright holder as well. And that's usually kind of information you'll find under the photo. When you do use images, it's always great practice to give your proper attribution, and that's usually with a full academic citation and or a link. If there isn't a citation provided and you're not sure what kind of information you have, I like to think of the Creative Commons guidelines for licensing and attribution, and they say to think of the acronym TASL. So you want to have your title, your author, your source, and your license if it's appropriate. And next slide. So my biggest pro tip is that's all overwhelming. So the easiest way to do it is to kind of use a targeted search. And there's a number of search engines out there that'll help you find royalty-free or copyright-free or Creative Commons licensed images. So this one is actually search.creativecommons.org. And as you can kind of see by the picture, it's a very easy to use search bar. You type in your subject area. On the left, you can kind of filter your results. They'll often have, do you want to be able to commercially use it? Do you want to be able to change the image? Which license do you want? And they have a good description of the different kinds of licenses that are available. So for this one, I've just typed in cat to see what they'll bring me. And then I clicked on the actual picture of that lovely cat on the front. And I get this kind of a good picture of what you would see using a search engine and why it's so useful. So we've got the lovely picture of the cat on the left, but if you look on the right, there's a lot of really good information about reuse. So the first thing we see is the license. And it says that this is licensed CC BY 2.0, which is a Creative Commons license. And it means Creative Commons by attribution. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But as you can see under there, we've got a little symbol of a human being, and it says credit the creator. And that's the conditions you need to do to use this image. And then on the next little section, you'll see an actual part that says credit the creator, and they've already put the citation together for you. So you can use it in rich text, HTML, plain text, and you can just copy and paste that into the document or into your slides. And then the third great part is it says go to Image's website. So when you click that link, it's going to take you to the website where they originally found the image. And that's where you can kind of verify the information, make sure the author does look to be the original creator, make sure the license does look correct, and make sure that it's got all the attribution elements you're going to need. And then next slide. This slide shows what we call the human readable summary of a Creative Commons license. This particular license is a CC BY 2.0, and it is what you would see if we had clicked on the CC license link on the cat image in the previous slide. The license uses plain language to describe the rights and responsibilities that are involved in using the work. As you can see here, you are free to share, copy, and redistribute the material in any medium or format, as well as adapt, which is remix, transform, and even build upon the material for any purpose, even commercially. As long as those terms are followed, the license cannot be revoked. This provides a sense of security when using the image in your various projects.
Hello, this is how to add alternative text to an image in Brightspace. Any image that you upload to Brightspace should contain alternative text, whether it's in a news item, a module in the content area within assignments instructions, or in a discussion thread. Here is how to add alternative text to an image in Brightspace. Sign into Brightspace and navigate to your desired course. In this example, we will add alternative text to a news item. Click on the arrow at the top of the news widget and select New News Item from the drop-down menu. Add a headline and some text to your news item as desired. Now we can add a photo to the body of the news item. Click on Insert Image and locate your desired image. Click Add. A pop-up window will prompt you to add alternative text to the image. Add a short description following the guidelines previously discussed. Click OK. If you wish to edit your alternative text, reselect the image and click the Image Options button to make the changes. Click Save when you are finished. Once your news item is complete, click Publish. To see the alternative text, hover your cursor over the image.
I just wanted to give a list of the sources, and I can forward this on to anyone who's interested, but this is a list of sources, and these are additional links to other sources that might be of interest, as well as the email for both the copyright and the studio if you have additional questions that you would like to ask at a later time.